guys, it's Megan with Megan Ashley Creative and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to talk about something I get asked all the time about, whether to do a first look before the ceremony or at the ceremony. So without further ado, let's talk about it. Okay, so you're putting together your wedding timeline, and one of the most important factors of that is trying to figure out when you're going to see each other for the first time, whether it's at the ceremony when either one of you might be coming down the aisle, or if you want to plan a first look so that you guys get to see each other and plan the rest of your day accordingly after that. One of the biggest reasons why people will do a first look is so they don't have a bunch of wait time between the ceremony and your reception. Depending on how you want your day to go, or whether your guest experience is important to you or not, will kind of help you dictate if you're going to do a first look or not. Okay, so let's start off with, I guess, what you would call the traditional first look down the aisle. It's something you think about when you're getting married. You just want that reaction from your partner, whether they're gonna cry or they're gonna just be overwhelmed with emotion seeing you for the first time, and it's a pretty fun experience. Now, a lot of brides and grooms are excited for that moment and they want to witness it with everybody that's attending their wedding, and that is totally cool. But what that does put a bit of strain on is then you are only limited to so much time between your ceremony and your reception, which is why a lot of couples are now opting to do a first look way before the ceremony, do all of their photos, and then get married and then almost go right into their receptions. The first one we're going to talk about is the traditional seeing each other down the aisle with your whole wedding party and people surrounding you, watching you. I don't know. What's cool about that is it is a big wedding tradition. Your spouse seeing you for the first time as you come down the aisle, maybe with your dad or a sibling or your best friend, whoever you choose to walk you down the aisle, there's a moment where that person is sort of like, not introducing you, but they're just like, here is the person you want to marry, and I'm going to help transition them from, you know, just your dating relationship into marriage. And it can be a really, really sweet moment. And if you are close with everybody that's there, which I would assume you would be, it's your wedding, then they also get to witness that moment that you see each other again, which is a pro to walking down the aisle and seeing them for the first time. It also sort of combines that step and your ceremony into one, so you're not adding something in to your timeline that you have to hit. So instead of having two different events happening during the day, you just have the one together. So there's another pro. So a con to this scenario is maybe you really wanted to have some time with your partner before you get married. You want to have a moment together, have some privacy. You don't really get that. You get married, you have that moment with everybody, and then you're almost celebrating the rest of your wedding day with everybody that's there. And for a lot of couples, that's totally fine. They want everybody included at all times, and they're just excited to just get on with their wedding day. But there are a lot of couples that would love to have that moment ahead of time. Maybe they're a little bit more particular about their photos. They want to just have some time to themselves, so that would be a con. You kind of give up that moment. The second con to that is you end up extending the time between your ceremony and your reception. So if your photographer asks for 2 hours of time, that's 2 hours of time that you have to keep your guests entertained for. Maybe you now have to have a cocktail hour, and if you're gonna have an open bar, that could cost more money. You know, and if having a consistent flow for your guests is important to you, then opting for the first look ahead of time to kind of get some of those out of the way is a great idea. So that leads us into the pros of having a first look before your ceremony. And the biggest one, especially for me as your photographer, is you can choose any time of the day to do your first look. And if your photographer is like, hey, I need 3 hours, which seems excessive, but you know, depends on what you're asking of that person. If you have a videography team and a photography team, you're gonna want extra time. All those things. If you have a Pinterest board full of photos that you just absolutely have to have on your wedding day, the first look is probably going to be your best option. You don't have to stress about your guests having to wait for you, having to plan things for them to do, having for them to go somewhere or go home first or whatever your decision may be. So you're just gonna get all your photos out of the way, get married, and then you can almost directly go in to your reception, or you get to enjoy your cocktail hour. You get to be a part of the action at all times. You've already had a private moment with your spouse. Then you got to spend some alone time with your wedding party. You got to do all your photos, send your wedding party off for them to get prepped for the ceremony. Then you get some alone time with your spouse before you walk down the aisle, all those things. And heck, maybe you want to walk down the aisle with your spouse. That's could be kind of a cool trend. It gives you so many more options for your ceremony and so many more options for your timeline after. If your ceremony is later in the day, say you're restricted to a certain time because there's multiple weddings happening at your venue, or you're if you're getting married in a church, they only do ceremonies at a specific time, then at least if your ceremony's later, then you don't have to cram a bunch of photos into half an hour's worth of time. You're paying really good money for your photographer and videographer. Giving them the most amount of time is going to give you the most amount of photos. I wouldn't say most amount. They're going to give you the highest quality of images, and you're just going to love how your wedding's documented so much more when you've given them time. So especially if your ceremony is later in the day, a pro would be to have your first look so you can get all that out of the way. And then that way, also, if you decide, well, I want to be one of those brides that goes to Starbucks on my wedding day, or McDonald's, or you guys work somewhere, you want to go take photos with coworkers or whatnot, you can do all of that ahead of time, and then you actually have time. You're not racing around trying to get back and keep on schedule. So a pro to having a first look is you pretty much get to dictate what you want to do that day and pick whatever times you want to pick. Think as a photographer, when my clients tell me they're having a first look, it's exciting. I mean, we still make it happen if you're not, but it makes things a little less stressful. So that would be pro number 2. It takes a load of stress off your day. You pick your time, you have your first look, your makeup artist will start whenever the heck you need them to. So if you want to start a few hours earlier so you have more time during the day once your makeup's done, great, then you can totally do that. So a pro would be little less stress. You can be a little bit more relaxed. Give yourself more time, cruise around if you want to, go visit family that might not be able to attend, things like that. I think overall, when you're trying to decide if you're going to do a first look ahead of the ceremony or at the ceremony, is how you want your day to feel. If your biggest concern on your wedding day is your guest experience, and you really don't want people to have to wait around and find something to do before your reception, then doing a first look is the best option for you. Gets everything out of the way, you can get married, maybe have a receiving line, go to the cocktail hour, and then into your reception, and you don't have to worry too much about being pulled away for photos. Your photographer will likely pull you in and out quickly, but you're not going to be away for hours at a time. If you have a ton of guests coming from out of town that maybe you don't get to see very often, also might sway you in the direction of a first look. Then you, like I said, you still have all that time to hang out with them and you're not off doing photos. So those are the pros and cons. I hope this helped. If you're still on the fence about it, do your research, ask your spouse, see if you guys are on the same page, and maybe you could do a first look with your family. Have mom and dad there, have your siblings there, have direct family that maybe you want to be a part of your first look, and that'll kind of blend the two of them together. You can also do all your family photos right then and there, and even take that off the list for after the ceremony. So I hope that helped. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you subscribe to my channel. Down at the bottom here, there's a little button that says subscribe, as well as a little bell. So click the bell and it'll notify you as soon as a new video is uploaded. I hope to see you guys next week. Cheers.